The country that we're being told is our global competition would find the business model of an alternative certification like Teach for America counter to research. That's why they wouldn't do it. And Finland is at the top. By now, I'm salivating all over my new best friend from Finland, and so I asked her, go back to that testing thing. You said that you got rid of your standardized tests, and yet your students perform at the top in these international tests. And she said, I didn't say we're against tests. I said we're against the wrong tests and using them in the wrong way. We're against teaching kids to be better test guessers. We do not think that advances their ability to give our economy and our society what it needs. We have a national curriculum that describes generally what children at each grade level need to know and be able to do, but it's the teachers who design the instruction and the assessment that are aligned with what they are teaching. The international PISA tests are given in countries on a random sample. No one knows whose students are going to be picked to take those tests. You can't cheat on them. You can't study for them or prepare for them. She said, if our children do well on them, it's because they actually know the material. I'm not a naturally suspicious type of person, and I don't want to imply that there's a connection. But an awful lot of the factory model reformers and the corporate leaders in the testing industry qualify for the friends and family plan of their phone company. They're very, very close, these people. The Washington Post, for instance, is one of the biggest editorial voices supporting more testing and moving from labeling the school to labeling individual teachers by their students' test scores. And they just happen to own Kaplan, the biggest test prep company on the planet. It's actually the other way around. Kaplan owns the Washington Post. The parent corporation this year says that they got more money from Kaplan than they did from selling the newspaper. The testing industrial complex in the United States is huge. The testing industry in Finland doesn't exist, and Finland is at the top. If the Obama administration needs to understand anything, they need to understand this. There is so much wrong with the factory model reformers and what they want to do. Private charter schools, making it easier to become a teacher, which of course means you're going to hire a whole bunch of bad teachers, so you have to make it easier to fire them later on, and you're going to know everything you need to know. You're going to rank, measure, label, punish, give prizes by a standardized test that you give at the end of the year. The Obama administration needs to understand this. We will not be fooled again. When they first breathed bipartisan life into the Frankenstein's monster of No Child Left Untested, our friends truly thought that they could pump so much money into it that we would be okay with a testing insanity that requires 100% of human-type children to all perform above average. A joke from Prairie Home Companion is now federal law. And we said, well, you know, we see certain good things, we agree with all the lofty goals, but we do have concerns about. That will not happen again. We need to get our home ec members to begin embroidering little samplers that say, it's the test, stupid. And we're going to post them all through Congress and all through the White House until they understand research is on our side, experience is on our side, and we have a will on our side that says we will sit quietly and let this happen again over our dead bodies. That's just me being nuanced. I took nuanced lessons from Eric. So we know where our members want us to be on this. You've heard your members talk about this. I've heard members shout about it. I've seen members cry over what the testing insanity has done to what it means to teach and what it means to learn. If they promise, again, to pump so much money into some peripheral areas that they think will make us happy, and they actually ratchet up the misuse of tests to label teachers and support staff, it will be like saying, yes, Mrs. Lincoln, but other than that, how did you like the play? It's not going to work this time. We cannot be the lone voice calling for whole child reform. If we have any hope of succeeding, we'll need unconventional friends like churches and civil rights advocates and boys and girls clubs and Parent Magazine. We'll need researchers like Linda Darling Hammond and Diane Ravitch, and we're going to need global examples like Finland. And we also need you, because you know the homegrown examples. What gives me hope is West Side Middle School in Waterbury, Connecticut. What gives me hope is that it was the Connecticut Education Association that called me and said, you have got to come out to this school. You have got to see what our members and our local union leaders are doing to turn around a school that had been failing on every single measure you could imagine. The University of Connecticut teamed up with CEA and a small number of pilot schools to form what they called Compact. They asked the staff in those schools if they were tired of seeing schools fail. They asked the staff if they would be a part of doing business in a very different way that took a lot more time, but they were things that research said would work. It meant fearlessly looking at what you were doing and the way you were doing it, and fearlessly getting the information that could give you the academic freedom to design something that worked better. They didn't know it was a Finland model, but as I looked at what they were telling me, it was professional development, time to collaborate, an expectation that you were the professional who could design the instruction and the assessment, and that we were going to virtually ignore the end of the year tests and let those tests take care of themselves. We would not prep for them. We would not let those tests drive our instruction. This is a very high poverty, high English language learner school community. They started it 4 years ago. The faculty and the support staff and the principal, at that time, they were very discouraged. They were depressed. There were little Prozac salt licks on all the faculty lunch tables. And they didn't realize how much that attitude was being projected to the students and the parents until they started really analyzing their school surveys of their school community atmosphere. The parents told them, I don't feel welcome. This isn't a friendly place. I only show up at school when my kid's in trouble because, by the way, that's the only time you ask me to show up at school. I talked to one of the teachers and she said, we're reading these forums over and over again saying the same thing, and we were shocked. We had no idea that that was how we came across to our parents. Now, the research says that you don't get to argue with the information. You don't get to go, well, they're wrong. They shouldn't feel that way. We're really perfectly nice people. And you're not allowed to ask rhetorical questions. You're not allowed to say, well, hey, the parents don't support me, so what am I supposed to do? You have to say, hey, the parents don't support me. What am I supposed to do? And then you're supposed to do something about it. So they organized collaboration teams. After they got all of these surveys in, they said, here's a team on parent relations, here's curriculum and instruction, here's the discipline problems that are driving us crazy. And they put all of these teams together, and then they let the faculty self-select what they were interested in, what they felt they had an expertise in, and they looked at all the things they could measure. They were not afraid of measuring. They're crazy about measuring things like parents coming to school, attendance, test scores, tardies, homework completion, disruptions. All of the things were part of the school atmosphere. And then they talked about what their school would look like if they could make it everything they wanted it to be. And then they designed a path to get from where they were to where they wanted to be.